The rain had no mercy that November evening. It hammered the pavement outside Romano's Italian bistro with the kind of force that turned umbrellas inside out and sent pedestrians scrambling for cover. Inside the restaurant, warmth spilled from Edison bulbs hanging over red checkered tablecloths. The scent of garlic and fresh basil floated through the air, mixing with the low hum of conversation and the clink of wine glasses. Sarah Mitchell stood pressed against the fogged window, her breath leaving small circles on the glass. She was 11 years old, though hunger had made her look younger. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Her jacket was too thin for the season, patched at the elbows with fabric that didn't quite match. Her sneakers were soaked through, water pooling around her feet on the sidewalk. She watched the diners inside with eyes that had learned not to hope too loudly. A couple shared linguine by candlelight. A family of 4 celebrated something. Champagne flutes raised high. An older man ate alone, reading a newspaper folded beside his plate. Sarah's stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, a half sandwich pulled from a convenience store dumpster. The memory of it made her throat tight. She turned to leave, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. Exhaustion had settled into her bones like cold stone. She leaned against the brick wall beside the window, sliding down until she sat on the wet concrete. The rain soaked through her jeans. She pulled her knees to her chest and wrapped her arms around them, trying to hold onto whatever warmth her body still produced. Inside, Maya Torres wiped down the bar for the 3rd time that hour. She was 26, dark hair pulled into a ponytail, an apron tied snug around her waist. She'd been working at Romano's for 2 years, ever since she dropped out of nursing school when her mother got sick. The medical bills had piled up faster than she could count, and waiting tables paid more than studying ever did. Her shift was almost over. 14 hours on her feet. Tips had been decent, but not great. Enough to cover rent and maybe groceries if she stretched it. She glanced at the clock above the kitchen door. 15 minutes until closing. Most of the tables had cleared out, leaving only the older man with his newspaper and a young couple lingering over dessert. That's when she saw her. Through the window, barely visible in the dim glow of the streetlight, a small figure sat huddled against the wall. Maya's hand froze mid-wipe. She set the cloth down and moved closer to the glass, pressing her palm against it. The girl's face was turned down, hidden beneath wet strands of hair. But Maya could see the way her shoulders shook, the way her fingers gripped her knees. Something inside Maya's chest cracked open. She looked around the restaurant. Marco, the head chef, was cleaning his station in the back. Vincent, the owner, had left an hour ago. The other waitress, Donna, was counting her tips in the corner booth. No one was watching. Maya grabbed a to-go container from behind the bar and slipped into the kitchen. Marco glanced up from scrubbing a pan. He was a broad man with tired eyes and flour dusted across his forearms. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Making a plate," Maya said, keeping her voice even. "For who?" "We're closed." "For me." "Late dinner." Marco studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. He didn't believe her, but he didn't stop her either. He'd worked in enough kitchens to know when someone was bending the rules for the right reasons. Maya filled the container with care. Spaghetti carbonara, still warm from the last order. A thick slice of garlic bread wrapped in foil. A small cup of minestrone soup with a plastic spoon tucked inside. She added a napkin, a fork, and sealed the container tight. Then she grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler and tucked it under her arm. She moved toward the front door, her heart pounding harder than it should. The older man folded his newspaper and left a 20 on the table. The couple paid their bill and walked out into the rain, laughing as they opened a shared umbrella. Donna was too focused on her tips to notice Maya slipping outside. The cold hit her immediately. Rain soaked through her shirt in seconds. She didn't care. She walked around the corner to where the girl sat, still pressed against the wall, eyes closed now. "Hey," Maya said softly. The girl's eyes snapped open, wide and startled. She scrambled to her feet, stumbling backward like a cornered animal. "It's okay," Maya said, holding up her hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl didn't speak. She stood frozen, every muscle tense to run. "Maya, crouched down slowly, setting the container and the water bottle on the ground between them. Then she stepped back, giving the girl space. "I work here," Maya said, nodding toward the restaurant. "I saw you out here, and I thought you might be hungry." The girl's eyes flickered to the container. Her throat moved as she swallowed. "It's yours," Maya continued. "No strings. I just want to make sure you eat something." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Rain drummed against the pavement. Water ran in rivulets down the alley. Then, slowly, the girl stepped forward. She bent down and picked up the container, holding it against her chest like a treasure. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was small and raw. Maya smiled. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. "Sarah. I'm Maya. Are you out here alone?" Sarah nodded, her eyes dropping to the ground. "Where are your parents?" The girl's face went pale. "Gone," she said quietly. "It's just me now." Maya's chest tightened. "How long have you been on the streets?" Sarah shrugged. "A while." Maya wanted to ask more, but she saw the way Sarah's hands trembled, the way her lips had started to turn blue. Questions could wait. Survival couldn't. "Listen," Maya said. "There's a shelter 2 blocks east. It's warm, and they serve breakfast in the morning. You should go there tonight." Sarah shook her head quickly. "They ask questions. They call people." Maya understood. The system wasn't kind to kids without families. Foster care, social services, strangers deciding your fate. She'd seen it happen to friends when she was younger. Sometimes the streets felt safer than the alternative. "Okay," Maya said gently, "but promise me you'll eat that food and drink the water. And if you need help, you come back here. Ask for me. I work most nights." Sarah nodded slowly. "Why are you helping me?" Maya thought about her mother, about the nights they'd struggled to pay for medicine, about the kindness of a pharmacist who'd let them slide on a bill once. She thought about how one act of grace could mean the difference between giving up and holding on. "Because someone helped me once," Maya said, "and because you deserve to be seen." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. She clutched the container tighter and turned to leave. But before she disappeared into the rain, she looked back over her shoulder. "Thank you, Maya." Then she was gone, swallowed by the darkness and the storm. Maya stood there for a moment, soaked to the bone, watching the empty alley. Her heart felt heavy and light all at once. She didn't know if she'd see Sarah again. She didn't know if the food would be enough. But she knew she'd done the only thing she could. She walked back inside, water dripping from her clothes. Donna looked up from the booth, eyebrows raised. "You're soaked." "Yeah," Maya said, grabbing a towel from behind the bar. "Forgot something outside." Donna didn't press. Maya dried her hair as best she could, grabbed her tips from the register, and clocked out. The rain had softened to a drizzle by the time she stepped outside again. She walked home through wet streets, her mind still on the girl with the hollow eyes and the quiet thank you. She didn't know that in 3 days, everything would change. She didn't know that the choice she made tonight would set in motion a series of events that would alter not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. All she knew was that she'd fed a hungry child, and for now, that was enough. The next morning arrived gray and sluggish. Maya awoke to the sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand. She reached for it, eyes still half closed, and saw 3 missed calls from Romano's. Her stomach dropped. She never got calls from work unless something was wrong. She dialed back, pressing the phone to her ear as she sat up in bed. Vincent answered on the second ring. "Maya, where are you?" "Home," she said, glancing at the clock. "My shift doesn't start until 4. Get here now. We have a situation." Her pulse quickened. "What kind of situation?" "Just get here." The line went dead. Maya stared at the phone, dread pooling in her gut. She threw on jeans and a sweater, pulled her hair into a messy bun, and grabbed her keys. The drive to the restaurant took 12 minutes. She parked on the street and saw immediately that something was off. A police car sat outside the front door, red and blue lights spinning lazily. 2 officers stood on the sidewalk, speaking with Vincent. His face was red, his hands gesturing wildly. Maya's breath caught. She climbed out of her car and walked toward them, her legs unsteady. Vincent saw her and pointed. "That's her. That's the one." The officers turned. One was older, gray at the temples, a worn look in his eyes. The other was younger, sharper, clipboard in hand. "Maya Torres?" the older officer asked. Yes, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. What's going on? We need to ask you some questions about an incident that occurred here last night. What incident? Vincent stepped forward, his face twisted with frustration. You gave food to someone without paying for it. That's theft, Maya. You stole from my restaurant. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. I didn't steal. I was going to pay for it. With what? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Vincent snapped. You think I don't notice when plates go missing? You think I don't see you sneaking food out the back? It was one meal, Maya said, her voice rising. For a kid who was starving. I don't care if it was for the Pope. You don't take food without permission. That's policy. The younger officer scribbled something on his clipboard. Ma'am, did you remove food from the premises without authorization? Maya hesitated. Yes, but then technically the officer said you violated your employment agreement and potentially committed petty theft. She felt the ground tilt beneath her. This can't be happening. Vincent crossed his arms. I want her arrested. The older officer sighed. Sir, this is a civil matter. We're not going to arrest anyone over a plate of pasta. Then I want her charged. I want this on record. Maya's throat tightened. She looked at Vincent, the man she'd worked for, the man whose restaurant she'd kept running through double shifts and holidays. You're really doing this? Over one meal? It's the principle, Vincent said coldly. You broke the rules. Before Maya could respond, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. Excuse me. What exactly is happening here? Everyone turned. A woman stood at the edge of the sidewalk, her posture straight, her gaze steady. She was in her early 40s, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She carried herself with the kind of quiet authority that made people straighten their spines without realizing it. Vincent blinked. Who are you? The woman stepped forward, her heels clicking against the pavement. Rebecca Lawson, CEO of Horizon Enterprises. Maya's stomach flipped. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Horizon Enterprises owned half the commercial real estate downtown. Rebecca Lawson was one of the most powerful businesswomen in the state. And this concerns you how? Vincent asked, though his voice had lost some of its edge. Rebecca's gaze shifted to Maya, then to the officers. I was driving by and saw the police presence. I thought I'd stop and see if everything was all right. It's under control, the younger officer said. Rebecca smiled faintly. Is it? She turned her attention to Vincent. You're the owner? Yes. And you're accusing this young woman of theft? She stole food from my restaurant. Rebecca's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. How much food? Vincent hesitated. A plate. Some bread. Soup. And what's the value of that? Maybe $15. Rebecca nodded slowly. And you've called the police over $15 worth of food? It's the principle, Vincent repeated, though he sounded less certain now. Rebecca looked at Maya. Why did you take the food? Maya swallowed hard. There was a girl outside. She was hungry. I couldn't just leave her there. Where's this girl now? I don't know. She left after I gave her the food. Rebecca turned back to Vincent. So let me make sure I understand. This woman saw a starving child and used her own resources to help. And your response is to have her arrested? She stole from me, Vincent insisted. She fed a child, Rebecca corrected. There's a difference. The older officer shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, we're just here to take a statement. Rebecca reached in her purse and pulled out a checkbook. She wrote something quickly, tore off the check, and handed it to Vincent. What's this? Vincent asked. Payment for the meal, and a donation to your restaurant. Consider it compensation for your trouble. Vincent stared at the check. His eyes widened. This is $5,000. Consider it an investment in doing the right thing, Rebecca said. Now, are we done here? Vincent looked at the check, then at the officers, then back at Rebecca. He nodded slowly. Yeah, we're done. The younger officer closed his clipboard. If there's no complaint, we'll be on our way. The two officers returned to their car and drove off, leaving the three of them standing on the sidewalk. Vincent folded the check carefully and tucked it into his pocket. Thank you, he muttered, then turned and walked back into the restaurant without another word. Maya stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Rebecca turned to her, her expression softer now. Are you all right? Maya nodded, though her hands were still shaking. I don't understand. Why did you do that? Rebecca smiled faintly. Because a long time ago, someone did something similar for me, and I've never forgotten it. Maya's throat felt tight. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, Rebecca said. But I do have a question. This girl you helped, do you know where she is? No, she didn't tell me. Rebecca's expression shifted, something thoughtful crossing her face. If you see her again, will you let me know? Why? Because Rebecca said quietly, I'd like to help too. She handed Maya a business card. Her name and number were printed in clean, simple font. Call me if you find her, Rebecca said. Or if you need anything else. Then she turned and walked back to a sleek black sedan parked across the street. The driver opened the door, and she slid inside. The car pulled away smoothly, disappearing into traffic. Maya stood on the sidewalk, staring at the card in her hand. She didn't understand what had just happened. She didn't understand why a billionaire CEO had stopped to help her. But as she looked down at the embossed lettering, she felt something shift inside her chest. Hope. Fragile and uncertain, but real. She tucked the card into her pocket and walked back to her car. Her shift started in a few hours, but she knew she wouldn't be able to focus. Her mind kept circling back to Sarah, to the rain, to the way the girl had looked at her with those desperate, grateful eyes. She had to find her. She had to make sure she was okay. And somehow, she knew Rebecca Lawson wasn't done with this story either. 3 days passed before Maya saw Sarah again. 3 days of searching alleys and shelters, of asking other street kids if they'd seen a girl with wet brown hair and a patched jacket. Most didn't answer. The ones who did shook their heads and walked away. Maya's shifts at Romano's continued. Vincent didn't speak to her directly anymore, but he didn't fire her either. The $5,000 check had bought her silence and his tolerance. The other servers whispered about what had happened, but no one asked her outright. Maya kept her head down and did her job. On the fourth night, the temperature dropped. Winter was coming early, the kind of cold that sank into your lungs and didn't let go. Maya finished her shift and stepped outside, pulling her coat tight. The street was quiet, most of the shops already closed. She was about to head to her car when she heard it. A cough, rough and wet, coming from the alley beside the restaurant. Maya's heart jumped. She walked toward the sound, her breath misting in the frigid air. And there, huddled behind a dumpster, was Sarah. The girl looked worse than before. Her face was pale, almost gray. Her lips were chapped and cracked. She was shivering violently, her thin jacket doing nothing to protect her from the wind. Sarah, Maya breathed, rushing forward. The girl looked up, recognition flickering in her dull eyes. Maya. Maya knelt beside her, pulling off her own coat and draping it over Sarah's shoulders. You're freezing. How long have you been out here? I don't know, Sarah whispered. A while. Maya pressed the back of her hand to Sarah's forehead. She was burning up, fever radiating through her skin. This wasn't just cold. This was sickness. You need a doctor, Maya said. No hospitals, Sarah said quickly, panic rising in her voice. They'll take me away. Maya's mind raced. She thought of the shelters, all of them requiring identification and parental consent. She thought of the emergency room, the questions they'd ask, the system that would swallow Sarah whole. And then she thought of the business card in her pocket. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number. It rang twice before a calm, professional voice answered. Rebecca Lawson's office. This is Maya Torres. I need to speak with Ms. Lawson. It's urgent. One moment, please. The hold music was soft, classical. Maya kept one hand on Sarah's shoulder, feeling the girl's labored breathing. Then the line clicked. Maya? Rebecca's voice was clear, immediate. What's wrong? I found her. The girl I told you about. She's sick, and I don't know what to do. Where are you? Maya gave her the address. Rebecca didn't hesitate. Stay there. I'm 10 minutes away. The line went dead. Maya tucked the phone back in her pocket and turned her full attention to Sarah. The girl's eyes were half closed, her body swaying slightly. Hey, stay with me, Maya said, gently shaking her shoulder. Help is coming. Who? Sarah mumbled. A friend. Someone who wants to help. Sarah's breathing hitched. I don't want to go back. Back where? The girl didn't answer. Her eyes closed fully, and her body went limp. Maya's pulse spiked. Sarah! Sarah, wake up! She grabbed the girl's wrist, feeling for a pulse. It was there, faint but steady. She was unconscious but alive. Maya pulled her closer, wrapping both arms around her, trying to share whatever warmth she had left. Minutes stretched into eternity. The wind howled through the alley, carrying the scent of exhaust and old rain. Then, finally, headlights cut through the darkness. A black sedan pulled up to the mouth of the alley, and Rebecca Lawson stepped out. She wasn't alone. A man in a white coat followed her, carrying a medical bag. He looked to be in his 50s, with kind eyes and steady hands. "This is Dr. Alan Grant," Rebecca said, moving quickly toward them. "He's a friend. He won't report this." The doctor knelt beside Sarah, opening his bag and pulling out a stethoscope. He listened to her chest, checked her pulse, lifted her eyelids to examine her pupils. "She's severely dehydrated and malnourished," he said quietly. "Fever's high, likely pneumonia. She needs fluids, antibiotics, and rest." "Can you treat her here?" Rebecca asked. Dr. Grant hesitated. "She needs to be monitored. If her condition worsens, then we'll take her somewhere safe," Rebecca interrupted. "But not a hospital. Not yet." The doctor looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but we need to move her now." Rebecca turned to Maya. "There's a property I own, a small residence downtown. It's empty, private. We can take her there." Maya's mind spun. This was happening too fast. But she looked down at Sarah's pale face, at the shallow rise and fall of her chest, and she knew there was no other choice. "Okay," Maya said. "Let's go." Dr. Grant carefully lifted Sarah into his arms. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Rebecca led them to the sedan, and the driver opened the back door. Maya climbed in first, and the doctor laid Sarah across the seat, her head resting in Maya's lap. Rebecca slid in beside them, and the car pulled away from the curb. The drive was silent except for Sarah's labored breathing. Maya kept one hand on the girl's forehead, smoothing back her damp hair. Rebecca sat with her hands folded in her lap, her expression unreadable. They arrived at a narrow brownstone tucked between two larger buildings. The driver parked, and Rebecca unlocked the front door with a key from her purse. Inside, the space was modest but clean. Hardwood floors, simple furniture, a small kitchen in the back. A staircase led to a second floor. "Upstairs," Rebecca said. "First bedroom on the left." Dr. Grant carried Sarah up the stairs, and Maya followed close behind. The bedroom was small, with a single bed and a dresser. The doctor laid Sarah down gently and immediately began setting up in 4-line. He worked with quiet efficiency, checking her vitals, administering medication, wrapping her in warm blankets. "She'll need to stay here for at least a week," he said. "Maybe longer, depending on how she responds to treatment. I'll check on her daily." "Thank you, Alan," Rebecca said. The doctor nodded, packed his bag, and left the room. Maya stood by the bed, staring down at Sarah's still form. The girl looked so small, so fragile. Rebecca stepped beside her. "You did the right thing calling me." Maya shook her head. "I didn't know what else to do. Most people would have walked away," Rebecca said quietly. "But you didn't. That says something about who you are." Maya looked at her. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know her." Rebecca's expression shifted, something distant entering her gaze. "Because I used to be her." Maya's breath caught. "What?" Rebecca walked to the window, looking out at the darkened street. "A long time ago, I was a kid on the streets. No family, no home. I survived by stealing food and sleeping in doorways. One night, someone found me. A woman named Claire. She took me in, fed me, gave me a place to stay. She didn't ask questions. She just helped." Maya felt her throat tighten. "What happened to her?" "She passed away years ago," Rebecca said softly. "But before she did, she made me promise something. She made me promise that if I ever had the means, I'd do for someone else what she did for me." Maya looked back at Sarah, at the girl who had no idea how many lives she'd touched just by being seen. "I want to help," Maya said. "Whatever you need, I'll do it." Rebecca turned to her, and for the first time, Maya saw something vulnerable in her eyes. "Then we'll help her together." And in that moment, standing in a quiet room with a sick child between them, Two women who had been strangers just days ago became something more. They became a lifeline, and the story was only beginning. The brownstone became his second home. Maya spent every spare moment there, checking on Sarah, bringing food, sitting by her bedside while she slept. Rebecca visited daily, often bringing Dr. Grant or supplies the girl might need. Slowly, Sarah began to recover. On the fifth day, she woke fully. Her eyes fluttered open as she looked around the unfamiliar room with confusion. Maya was sitting in a chair beside the bed, reading a book. When she noticed Sarah stirring, she set it aside and leaned forward. "Hey," Maya said softly. "You're awake." Sarah's voice was hoarse. "Where am I?" "Somewhere safe. You've been sick. Do you remember?" Sarah's brow furrowed, and then recognition dawned. "The alley. You found me." "Yeah, and I brought help." Sarah tried to sit up, but her body was still weak. Maya gently eased her back down. "Take it easy. You're still recovering." "Who else is here?" Sarah asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Just me and a doctor. And a woman named Rebecca. She's the one who owns this place." Sarah's eyes widened. "Why would she help me?" "Because she knows what it's like to be where you are," Maya said. "And because she believes you deserve better." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "I don't deserve anything." Maya's chest ached. "Yes, you do. Every kid deserves to be safe and cared for." Sarah turned her face away, and Maya let the silence settle. She didn't push. She learned that trust wasn't given quickly, especially by someone who had been let down too many times. Later that evening, Rebecca arrived with a bag of groceries. She knocked lightly on the bedroom door before entering. Sarah was sitting up now, her back against the headboard, a blanket pulled around her shoulders. "Hello, Sarah," Rebecca said, her tone warm but not overly familiar. "I'm Rebecca. How are you feeling?" "Better," Sarah said quietly. "I'm glad to hear it." Rebecca set the bag on the dresser. "I brought some things. Soup, crackers, juice. Nothing heavy," Dr. Grant said, "to keep your meals light for now." "Thank you," Sarah whispered. Rebecca pulled up a chair and sat across from the bed. Maya stood by the door, watching the exchange. There was something careful in the way Rebecca moved, as if she understood the delicate balance of offering help without overwhelming. "Sarah," Rebecca said gently, "I know this must all be very confusing, but I want you to know that you're not in trouble. No one is going to force you to do anything you don't want to do." Sarah's eyes flickered with uncertainty. "Then why are you helping me?" "Because I know what it's like to be alone," Rebecca said, "and because I believe that everyone deserves a chance to start over." Sarah's lower lip trembled. "What if I don't know how to start over?" "Then we'll figure out together," Rebecca said, "one step at a time." For the first time since she'd woken, Sarah's expression softened. She looked between Maya and Rebecca, two women who had no reason to care, but did anyway. "Thank you," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "Both of you." Maya moved to sit on the edge of the bed, placing a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You don't have to thank us. Just focus on getting better." Rebecca nodded. "And when you're ready, we'll talk about what comes next. But there's no rush. For now, just rest." Sarah nodded, exhaustion creeping back into her features. She slid down under the blankets, and within minutes, her breathing evened out as sleep claimed her once more. Maya and Rebecca left the room quietly, closing the door behind them. They stood in the hallway, the weight of the moment settling between them. "She's been through a lot," Maya said softly. "More than we probably know," Rebecca agreed. "But she's strong, stronger than she realizes." "What happens when she's fully recovered?" Rebecca leaned against the wall, her expression thoughtful. "That depends on her. I'm not going to force her into the system if she doesn't want to go. But I also can't let her go back to the streets." "So what's the alternative?" Rebecca met her gaze. "I'm still figuring that out, but I have some ideas." Maya wanted to ask what those ideas were, but she could see that Rebecca wasn't ready to share yet. So she simply nodded and said, "Whatever you need from me, I'm here." Rebecca smiled faintly. "I know, and that means more than you realize." They walked downstairs together, and Rebecca poured them both tea from a kettle she'd set on the stove. They sat at the small kitchen table, the warmth of the cups seeping into their hands. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said after a moment. "Of course. Why did you stop that day, when you saw the police outside the restaurant?" Rebecca took a slow sip of her tea, her gaze distant. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I was on my way to a meeting, and I saw the flashing lights. Something told me to pull over. And when I heard what was happening, I couldn't just drive away. But you didn't have to help. You could have paid for the food and left. I could have, Rebecca said. But then I saw you. I saw the way you stood there, terrified but still defending what you'd done. And I remembered being that scared. I remembered needing someone to stand up for me. Maya's throat tightened. Did anyone? Rebecca nodded. Once. A woman named Claire. She found me on the street when I was 14. Gave me a place to stay, no questions asked. She changed my life. That's incredible. It was, Rebecca said quietly. But it also taught me something important. One act of kindness can ripple outward in ways you never expect. Claire helped me, and now I'm helping Sarah. And maybe someday, Sarah will help someone else. Maya felt something shift in her chest, a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about feeding a hungry child anymore. This was about building something bigger, something lasting. I want to be part of that, Maya said. Whatever you're planning, I want to help. Rebecca looked at her, and for a moment, something like gratitude flickered in her eyes. Then you will be. They finished their tea in comfortable silence, and when Maya finally left to go home, she felt lighter than she had in months. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if Sarah would stay or if this fragile coalition of care would hold. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't walking away. Not now. Not ever. And somewhere in the quiet brownstone, a girl who had spent years invisible finally allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she mattered. 2 weeks had passed since Sarah first opened her eyes in the brownstone. The fever had broken on day 7, and by day 10, she could walk to the bathroom without assistance. Dr. Grant visited less frequently now, satisfied with her progress. Color had returned to her cheeks, and her voice no longer carried that hollow, desperate quality. Maya arrived at the brownstone every morning before her shift at Romano's. She brought fresh bread from the corner bakery, fruit from the market, sometimes flowers just to brighten the room. Sarah had started drawing again, something she said she used to do before everything fell apart. Her sketches covered the walls now, taped up with painter's tape Rebecca had provided. Landscapes mostly, trees and rivers and mountains she'd never seen except in magazines. On this particular morning, Maya found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, pencil in hand, working on a new drawing. The girl looked up when she heard the door open, and for the first time since they'd met, she smiled without hesitation. "Morning," Sarah said. "Morning," Maya replied, setting down a bag of bagels and cream cheese. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep. Too much energy, I think." "That's a good sign." Sarah nodded, returning to her sketch. Maya poured herself coffee from the pot Rebecca must have started earlier and sat across from the girl. She watched Sarah's hand move across the paper, careful and deliberate. The drawing was taking shape into what looked like a building, tall with many windows. "What is it?" Maya asked. Sarah paused, studying her work. "I don't know yet. Maybe a school, or an office building. Somewhere people go every day." "You're good at this." Sarah shrugged, but Maya could see the pleasure in her expression. "My mom used to say I had an eye for detail. Before she got sick." It was the first time Sarah had mentioned her mother without prompting. Maya set down her coffee cup carefully, not wanting to spook the moment. "What was she like?" Maya asked gently. Sarah's pencil stilled. "She was kind, always trying to help people, even when we didn't have much ourselves. She worked at a grocery store, stocking shelves. It didn't pay a lot, but she said honest work was better than no work." Maya felt her chest tighten. "What happened to her?" "Cancer," Sarah said quietly. "It started in her lungs and spread fast. We couldn't afford the treatments. By the time the hospital admitted her, it was too late. She died 3 months ago." "I'm so sorry, Sarah." The girl nodded, blinking back tears. "After she died, I didn't have anyone. No other family. Social services tried to place me in a group home, but I ran. I'd heard stories about those places. Kids getting lost in the system, bouncing around until they aged out with nothing. I thought I could make it on my own." "And you did," Maya said softly. "You survived." "Barely," Sarah whispered. "If you hadn't found me that night, I don't know what would have happened." Maya reached across the table and placed her hand over Sarah's. You don't have to think about that anymore. You're here now, and you're safe. Sarah looked up, her eyes wet but steady. For how long? It was the question Maya had been dreading. She didn't have an answer. Rebecca had been deliberately vague about long-term plans, and Maya hadn't pushed. But she knew they couldn't keep Sarah hidden forever. Eventually, decisions would need to be made. The front door opened before Maya could respond. Rebecca stepped inside, dressed in a navy blazer and tailored slacks, her briefcase in hand. She looked like she'd just come from a meeting, which she probably had. Rebecca's schedule was relentless, yet she still made time to check on Sarah daily. "Good morning," Rebecca said, setting her briefcase on the counter. "How's everyone today?" "Good," Sarah said, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. Rebecca noticed immediately. She pulled out a chair and sat down, folding her hands on the table. "I think it's time we talked about the future." Sarah's shoulders tensed. Maya felt her own pulse quicken. Rebecca's tone remained calm, reassuring. "Sarah, you made incredible progress these past 2 weeks. You're healthy, you're safe, and you've shown remarkable resilience. But we need to discuss what happens next. Are you sending me back?" Sarah asked, her voice small. "Back where?" "To the system. To foster care." Rebecca shook her head firmly. "Not unless that's what you want. But we do need to figure out a sustainable plan. You can't stay in this brownstone indefinitely, hidden away from the world." "Then what do I do?" Sarah's voice cracked. "I don't have anywhere else to go." Rebecca leaned forward slightly. "What if I told you there was another option? Something that would give you stability, education, and a real chance at building a future?" Sarah looked at her warily. "What kind of option?" Rebecca glanced at Maya, then back to Sarah. "I've been working on something. A program designed specifically for kids like you. Young people who've fallen through the cracks, who need more than what the traditional system can offer." "What kind of program?" Maya asked. "It's called Second Foundations," Rebecca said. "It's a residential facility combined with an educational center. Students live on campus in small group homes, attend school, receive counseling, and learn life skills. The goal is to prepare them for independence while giving them the support they need to heal." Sarah frowned. "That sounds like a group home." "It's different," Rebecca said. "It's smaller, more personalized. Each house has no more than 6 kids, and 2 live-in mentors. The staff are trained trauma-informed professionals, and every student has a say in their own care plan. You're not just a number. You're a person." "How do you know all this?" Sarah asked suspiciously. "Because I'm funding it," Rebecca said simply. "I've been working on this project for 3 years. We're opening the first campus next month." Maya's breath caught. She hadn't known any of this. Rebecca had never mentioned it. "You're building a whole school?" Maya asked. "Not just a school," Rebecca clarified. "A community. A place where kids who've been failed by the system can start over without being defined by their trauma." Sarah stared at her, disbelief written across her face. "And you want to go there?" "I think it could be good for you," Rebecca said gently. "But the choice is yours. I'm not going to force you into anything." The room fell silent. Sarah looked down at her drawing, at the building she'd been sketching without knowing what it represented. Maya wondered if the girl realized she'd just drawn her own future. "Can I think about it?" Sarah asked finally. "Of course," Rebecca said. "Take all the time you need." But as Sarah returned to her sketch, Maya could see the wheels turning in the girl's mind. She was considering it, and that alone felt like progress. Later that afternoon, after Sarah had gone upstairs to rest, Maya and Rebecca stood in the kitchen. Maya poured them both fresh coffee, her mind still reeling from Rebecca's revelation. "You've been planning this for 3 years?" Maya asked. Rebecca nodded. "Ever since Claire passed. She left me a letter asking me to use my resources to help kids who needed it most. At first, I didn't know how. I threw money at charities, funded scholarships, donated to shelters. But none of it felt like enough. So you decided to build something from scratch. It seemed like the only way to do it right," Rebecca said. "The system is broken. Kids like Sarah fall through the gaps every day. I wanted to create something better, something that actually worked." Maya leaned against the counter, studying Rebecca's face. "And you never mentioned this before because I didn't want to pressure Sarah," Rebecca said. "Or you, for that matter. This had to be a choice, not an obligation. Does she have to decide right away?" "No. The campus doesn't open for another month. She has time. Maya sipped her coffee, letting the information settle. And what about after? Once she's there, will she still be able to see us? Rebecca's expression softened. Maya, if Sarah agrees to this, you'll be part of her support system. Mentors and positive adult figures are crucial to the program's success. I'd expect you to visit regularly. Relief flooded through Maya. She hadn't realized how much she'd feared losing contact with Sarah until Rebecca said otherwise. Okay, Maya said. Then I'm on board. Whatever she needs. Rebecca smiled faintly. I know you are. That's why I wanted you involved from the beginning. They finished their coffee in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Upstairs, they could hear Sarah moving around, the creak of floorboards, the soft sound of a drawer opening and closing. The girl was restless, processing everything she'd learned. Maya hoped she'd make the right choice. But more than that, she hoped Sarah would realize she finally had the luxury of making choices at all. That evening, Maya returned to her own apartment for the first time in days. It felt strange to be back, like visiting a place she used to know but no longer belonged to. She dropped her keys on the counter and collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion settling into her bones. Her phone buzzed. A text from Donna, the other waitress at Romano's. Vincent's been asking about you. Says you've been distracted lately. Everything okay? Maya stared at the message. She'd been so focused on Sarah that she hadn't noticed her work slipping. Vincent had been tolerant since Rebecca's intervention, but tolerance only stretched so far. She typed back quickly. I'm fine. Just dealing with some personal stuff. I'll be better. Donna's response came immediately. If you need to talk, I'm here. Maya smiled faintly. Thanks. I appreciate it. She set the phone down and closed her eyes. Her life had become complicated in ways she never expected. 2 weeks ago, she was just a waitress trying to make ends meet. Now she was part of something bigger, something that mattered. But it also meant sacrifices. Late nights, missed sleep, constant worry about Sarah's well-being. Was it worth it? Maya thought of Sarah's smile that morning, the way her eyes had lit up when she talked about her drawings. She thought of Rebecca's quiet determination, the way she'd built an entire program just to honor a promise to someone who'd saved her life. Yes, Maya decided. It was worth it. All of it. She pulled out her phone again and scrolled through her contacts until she found her mother's number. They hadn't spoken in months, not since the argument about Maya dropping out of nursing school. Her mother had been furious, said Maya was throwing away her future. But Maya had made her choice, and she'd stood by it. Now, though, she felt the need to reach out, to share what was happening, even if her mother didn't understand. She pressed call. The phone rang 3 times before her mother answered. Maya? Her mother's voice was surprised but warm. Is everything all right? Yeah, Mom. Everything's fine. I just wanted to hear your voice. There was a pause. That's nice, sweetie. How have you been? Busy, Maya said. Really busy, actually. I've been helping someone. A girl who needed it. She told her mother everything. About finding Sarah outside the restaurant, about Rebecca's intervention, about the program being built. Her mother listened without interrupting, and when Maya finished, there was a long silence. That's incredible, her mother said finally. I'm proud of you. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. You are? Of course I am. I know I was hard on you about school, but what you're doing now, that matters too. You're making a real difference in that girl's life. Thanks, Mom, Maya whispered. They talked for another 20 minutes, catching up on small things, filling in the gaps the months had created. When they finally said goodbye, Maya felt lighter. Like a weight she'd been carrying had lifted just enough to let her breathe. She went to bed that night with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. And when she woke the next morning, she was ready to face whatever came next. The following week moved quickly. Sarah continued to recover, both physically and emotionally. She talked more, laughed occasionally, even joked with Maya about her terrible cooking skills. The drawings on the walls multiplied, each one more detailed than the last. Rebecca visited every other day now, bringing updates about second foundations. The construction was nearly complete. Staff had been hired. Curriculum was being finalized. Everything was falling into place. On Thursday evening, Rebecca arrived with someone new, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and an easy smile. She introduced herself as Dr. Naomi Chun, the head counselor for Second Foundations. Sarah was sitting on the couch when they walked in, and she looked up warily. "Hi, Sarah," Dr. Chun said gently. "I've heard a lot about you." Sarah glanced at Rebecca, then back to Dr. Chun. "Who are you?" "I'm a therapist. I work with the program Rebecca told you about." "I don't need therapy," Sarah said quickly. Dr. Chun smiled. "That's okay. I'm not here to force anything on you. I just wanted to meet you and answer any questions you might have about the program." Sarah hesitated, then gestured to the chair across from her. "You can sit, I guess." Dr. Chun sat down, folding her hands in her lap. "So what do you want to know?" Sarah chewed her lip, thinking, "What's it like? Living there, I mean." Dr. Chun considered the question carefully. "Honestly, it's structured but flexible. You have a routine, which helps create stability. But you also have freedom to make choices. What classes you take, what activities you participate in, how you spend your free time. Do I have to share a room?" "You'll have your own room," Dr. Chun said. "Privacy is important, especially for kids who haven't had much of it." "What about rules?" "There are some, of course. Curfew, chores, attending school. But they're designed to teach responsibility, not to control you." Sarah nodded slowly. "And if I don't like it, can I leave?" Dr. Chin's expression remained neutral. "Leaving isn't as simple as walking out the door. But if you're genuinely unhappy, we'll work together to find a solution. The goal is never to trap you. It's to support you." Sarah looked at Rebecca, then at Maya. They were both watching her carefully, not pushing, just waiting. She turned back to Dr. Chun. "Can I visit before I decide?" "Absolutely," Dr. Chun said. "In fact, I'd encourage it. We're having an open house next week. You can tour the campus, meet some of the staff, see the classrooms and dorms." "Okay," Sarah said quietly. "I'll go." Rebecca's face broke into a smile. "That's wonderful." After Dr. Chun left, Sarah sat quietly on the couch, staring at her hands. Maya sat beside her, not speaking, just being present. Finally, Sarah looked up. "What if I go and it's terrible? What if it's just another place that doesn't want me?" "Then you'll come back here," Maya said. "Rebecca and I aren't going anywhere. You're not alone in this." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared." "I know," Maya said softly, "but being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. It just means what you're doing matters." Sarah leaned into her, and Maya wrapped an arm around her shoulders. They sat like that for a long time, the weight of uncertainty balanced by the comfort of connection. The open house took place the following Saturday. Rebecca drove them all in her sedan, Sarah sitting in the back beside Maya, her knee bouncing nervously. The campus was located on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by trees and open fields. The main building was modern, all glass and natural wood, designed to feel welcoming rather than institutional. As they pulled into the parking lot, Sarah pressed her face to the window. "It's big," she said. "It has to be," Rebecca replied. "We're starting with 50 students. Eventually, we hope to accommodate twice that." They stepped out of the car, and Dr. Chin appeared almost immediately, clipboard in hand. "Welcome," she said warmly. "Ready for the tour?" Sarah nodded, though she stayed close to Maya's side. They walked through the main entrance into a bright atrium filled with natural light. Students were already arriving, other kids like Sarah, brought by social workers or foster families or program coordinators. Some looked excited. Others looked as terrified as Sarah felt. Dr. Chun led them down a wide hallway lined with classrooms. Through the windows, Sarah could see desks arranged in small circles, bookshelves stocked with novels and textbooks, art supplies organized neatly on counters. "This is the academic wing," Dr. Chun explained. "We offer standard curriculum plus electives like art, music, and vocational training." They continued to the residential wing, where the group homes were located. Each house was a separate building connected by covered walkways. Dr. Chun opened the door to one, and Sarah stepped inside cautiously. The space felt like a real home. A living room with comfortable couches and a television. A kitchen with a large table. Upstairs, 6 bedrooms, each with a bed, desk, and closet. The walls were painted soft colors, blues and greens and yellows. "You'd share this house with 5 other students," Dr. Chin said. "2 mentors live here full-time. They're trained to provide support, structure, and guidance." Sarah walked through the house slowly, taking in every detail. She stopped in one of the bedrooms, running her hand along the desk. "It's nice," she said quietly. "I'm glad you think so," Dr. Chen said. They finished the tour in the common area, a large space with games, books, and comfortable seating. Other families were gathered there, asking questions, filling out paperwork. Sarah watched them, her expression unreadable. "What do you think?" Maya asked gently. Sarah took a deep breath. "I think I want to try." Rebecca's face lit up. "Are you sure?" "No," Sarah admitted, "but I don't think I'll ever be sure. So I might as well take the chance." Maya felt tears sting her eyes. She reached out and squeezed Sarah's hand. "I'm so proud of you." That afternoon, they filled out the necessary forms. Sarah would move into second foundations in 2 weeks, giving her time to adjust to the idea and tie up loose ends. Rebecca handled the logistics, ensuring everything was in place. Dr. Chin scheduled an intake appointment to assess Sarah's needs and create an individualized care plan. By the time they left the campus, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the fields. Sarah was quiet on the drive home, staring out the window. But when they pulled up to the brownstone, she turned to Rebecca and Maya. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "You don't have to thank us," Rebecca said. "I know," Sarah replied, "but I want to." That night, after Sarah had gone to bed, Maya and Rebecca sat in the kitchen one last time. They'd spent so many evenings in this space, planning, worrying, hoping. Now it felt like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. "She's going to be okay," Maya said. Rebecca nodded. "I think so too." "And what about us?" Maya asked. "What happens after she moves in?" Rebecca looked at her thoughtfully. "I was hoping you'd stay involved. Not just with Sarah, but with Second Foundations as a whole. We're going to need volunteers, mentors, people who understand what these kids are going through." "I'm not a professional," Maya said. "You don't need to be," Rebecca replied. "You just need to care. And you've already proven you do." Maya smiled. "Then count me in." They sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the past few weeks settling around them like a blanket. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, 2 women who had been strangers had become something more. Partners, friends, protectors of a girl who had needed them when no one else would step up. And though neither of them said it aloud, they both knew this was only the beginning. There would be more Sarahs out there, more kids who needed someone to see them, to fight for them, to believe they were worth saving. And Rebecca and Maya would be ready. The day arrived with unexpected clarity. No rain, no wind, just autumn sunlight filtering through bare branches. Maya stood in the brownstone small bedroom, helping Sarah pack the few belongings she'd accumulated over the past month. Clothes Rebecca had bought, art supplies, the drawings that had covered every available wall space. Sarah folded each item carefully, methodically, as if the precision of the task could calm the storm brewing inside her. "Are you nervous?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. Sarah nodded without looking up. "What if I mess this up? What if I can't handle it?" "Then you'll learn and try again," Maya said. "That's what growth looks like. It's messy and uncomfortable, but it's how we become who we're meant to be." Sarah paused, holding a sweater against her chest. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy," Maya admitted, "but it's worth it." They continued packing in silence until the suitcase was full and the walls were bare. The room looked emptier now, stripped of the personality Sarah had brought to it. Maya felt an unexpected pang of loss. This space had been a sanctuary, a bridge between survival and something better. Now that bridge was ending, and what lay ahead was uncertain. Rebecca arrived at noon in her sedan, the trunk already open. Dr. Chin sat in the passenger seat, offering a reassuring smile as they approached. Sarah climbed into the back, Maya beside her, and they pulled away from the brownstone for what might be the last time. The drive to Second Foundations felt longer than it had during the open house. Sarah watched the city give way to suburbs, then to open land dotted with trees. When the campus finally came into view, she took a sharp breath. "It looks different," she said quietly. "How so?" Rebecca asked from the front. "More real." The parking lot was busier now. Moving trucks unloaded furniture and supplies. Staff members directed traffic. Other families arrived with their own children, each one carrying suitcases and expressions that mirrored Sarah's uncertainty. Dr. Chun led them to the residential wing, specifically to Maple House, where Sarah would be living. The house looked exactly as it had during the tour, warm and inviting, but now it was alive with activity. Two mentors greeted them at the door. The first was a woman in her 40s named Patricia, with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. The second was a younger man named Marcus, perhaps 30, with an easy demeanor and a gentle voice. "Welcome, Sarah," Patricia said. "We've been looking forward to meeting you." Sarah managed a small smile. "Thanks. Let me show you to your room," Marcus offered. "You can get settled while we handle the paperwork with Maya and Rebecca." Sarah glanced back at Maya, panic flickering in her eyes. Maya gave her an encouraging nod. "You got this." Sarah followed Marcus upstairs, her footsteps heavy on the wooden stairs. Maya watched her go, feeling the weight of separation settle in her chest. Rebecca placed a hand on her shoulder. "She'll be okay," Rebecca said softly. "This is what she needs." "I know," Maya replied, "but that doesn't make it easier to watch." They spent the next hour with Dr. Chun and Patricia, reviewing Sarah's care plan, discussing her medical history, outlining the support systems in place. Maya listened carefully, committing every detail to memory. She wanted to understand exactly what Sarah would be experiencing so she could be a better support when they visited. When the paperwork was finally complete, Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs. "Sarah would like to say goodbye now," he said gently. Maya's throat tightened. She climbed the stairs slowly, Rebecca following close behind. Sarah's room was the third door on the left, already personalized with a few of her drawings taped to the walls. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap. "So this is it," Sarah said, her voice small. "For now," Maya replied, sitting beside her. "But I'll be back to visit. Next weekend, if that's okay with you." Sarah nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "What if I can't do this?" Maya took her hands. "Then you'll call me, and we'll figure it out together. But I think you're stronger than you realize. You've survived things that would break most people. This is just the next step." Sarah leaned into her, and Maya wrapped her arms around the girl, holding her tight. They stayed like that for a long moment, neither wanting to let go. Finally, Sarah pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, "for seeing me when I was invisible." Maya's vision blurred. "You were never invisible to me." Rebecca stepped forward then, crouching, so she was eye level with Sarah. "You have my number," she said, "and Maya's. If you need anything at all, you call. Day or night. Understood?" Sarah nodded. "I understand." They left Maple House together, walking slowly back to the car. Maya glanced back once and saw Sarah standing in the window of her room, watching them go. She raised a hand in a small wave, and Sarah waved back before disappearing from view. The drive home was quiet. Maya stared out the window, processing the strange mix of emotions swirling inside her. Pride, sadness, hope, fear. Rebecca seemed to sense her turmoil and didn't push conversation. They simply drove, letting the silence speak for them. When Rebecca finally dropped Maya off at her apartment, she turned to her with a serious expression. "You did something extraordinary, Maya. Not just for Sarah, but for yourself too. You chose to care when it would have been easier to walk away." "I didn't feel like I had a choice," Maya said. "That's what makes it extraordinary," Rebecca replied. "The best choices never feel like choices at all. They feel like the only possible response." Maya nodded slowly. "Thank you for everything you did. For both of us." Rebecca smiled. "This isn't over. We're just getting started." Maya climbed out of the car and watched Rebecca drive away. Then she walked up to her apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The space felt different now, quieter but not empty. She set her keys down and collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "I'm okay. Room is nice. Marcus helped me hang up my drawings. Thank you for today." Maya smiled through her tears and typed back. "Proud of you. Sleep well." She set the phone down and closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to simply breathe. The first week passed slowly. Maya returned to her regular schedule at Romano's, throwing herself into work with renewed focus. Vincent had stopped asking questions about her absences, perhaps sensing that whatever had been consuming her attention was over. Or maybe Rebecca's donation had bought more than just silence. Either way, Maya was grateful for the space. On Friday evening, as she was wiping down tables after the dinner rush, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw Dr. Chen's name. Her heart jumped. "Hello. Hi, Maya. It's Naomi Chun. I wanted to give you an update on Sarah." Maya's grip tightened on the phone. "Is everything okay?" "She's adjusting well," Dr. Chen said. "Better than we expected. Actually, she's attending all her classes, participating in group activities, and she started meeting with me for individual counseling sessions." "That's wonderful," Maya said, relief flooding through her. "There's one thing, though. She's asked if you could visit tomorrow instead of waiting until next weekend. She says she has something she wants to show you." Of course, Maya said immediately. "What time?" "Visiting hours start at 10. I'll let her know you're coming." Maya hung up and felt a surge of anticipation. She finished her shift quickly, went home, and spent the evening thinking about what she might bring Sarah. She finally settled on a sketchbook and a new set of colored pencils, knowing how much the girl loved to draw. The next morning, Maya drove to Second Foundations under a pale sky. The campus looked different in daylight, less imposing, more like a place where growth could happen. She checked in at the main building and was directed to Maple House. Patricia greeted her at the door. "Sarah's been talking about your visit all week," she said warmly. "She's in the common area." Maya found Sarah sitting on one of the couches, hunched over a large piece of paper spread across the coffee table. When she heard Maya approach, she looked up, and her face broke into a genuine smile. "You came," Sarah said. "Of course I did," Maya replied, sitting beside her. "What are you working on?" Sarah turned the paper so Maya could see. It was a detailed architectural drawing, far more sophisticated than anything Maya had seen her create before. The building had multiple wings, courtyards, skylights, and what looked like gardens integrated into the design. "It's a community center," Sarah explained, "for people who don't have homes. I've been working on it all week in my design class." Maya studied the drawing, impressed by the level of detail. "This is incredible, Sarah. You really have a gift for this." Sarah's cheeks flushed with pride. "My teacher says I should consider architecture when I'm older. She thinks I have a right kind of brain for it." "I think she's right," Maya said. "Have you shown this to Rebecca?" "Not yet. I wanted you to see it first." Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. "I'm honored, and I think Rebecca is going to love it." They spent the next hour talking, Sarah showing Maya around Maple House, introducing her to the other residents, pointing out the small changes she'd made to her room. Maya could see the transformation happening in real time. Sarah was still cautious, still carried shadows in her eyes, but there was something new there too. Confidence. Possibility. When it was time for Maya to leave, Sarah walked her to the door. Marcus was nearby, giving them space but staying close enough to provide support if needed. "I'm really glad you're here," Maya said, "and I'm so proud of how hard you're working." "It's easier than I thought it would be," Sarah admitted. "I think because I finally feel like I have a purpose, like I'm building towards something instead of just surviving." "That's exactly what you're doing," Maya said, "and I can't wait to see what you build." Sarah hugged her tightly, and Maya held on for a moment longer than necessary. Then she climbed into her car and drove away, glancing in the rearview mirror to see Sarah waving from the doorway. Over the next several months, Maya visited regularly. She watched Sarah grow more confident, more engaged, more herself. The drawings became more ambitious. The conversations became deeper. Sarah started talking about college, about careers, about a future that had once seemed impossible. Rebecca visited too, often bringing updates about the expansion of Second Foundations. The program was working. The students were thriving. Other cities had started reaching out, asking about replication. What had begun as one woman's promise to honor her mentor was becoming a movement. One afternoon in early spring, Rebecca invited Maya to lunch at a small cafe downtown. They sat by the window, watching people pass on the sidewalk, and Rebecca slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" Maya asked. "A proposal," Rebecca said. "I want you to come work for Second Foundations full-time, as a program coordinator." Maya stared at her. What? You have a connection with these kids that most trained professionals spend years trying to develop, Rebecca explained. You understand what it means to struggle, to feel invisible, to need someone to believe in you. That's invaluable. But I'm not qualified, Maya protested. I don't have a degree in social work or counseling. You have something better, Rebecca said. You have empathy and authenticity. The rest can be taught. We'll provide training, mentorship, everything you need to succeed. Maya opened the folder and saw the job description, the salary, the benefits. It was more than she made at Romano's, more than she'd ever imagined earning. But more importantly, it was meaningful work. Work that mattered. Can I think about it? Maya asked. Take all the time you need, Rebecca said. But I hope you'll say yes, because I think this is where you're meant to be. Maya went home that night and called her mother. They'd been talking regularly since their reconnection, and her mother had become one of her biggest supporters. She told her about Rebecca's offer, about the opportunity to leave the restaurant and do something that aligned with her values. Her mother listened carefully, then said, "This sounds like the kind of work you were meant to do all along. I think you should take it, even though it means leaving nursing behind permanently." Maya, her mother said gently, "You've been nursing people back to health this entire time. You just haven't been doing it in a hospital." The words settled over Maya like a benediction. She realized her mother was right. She'd never stopped caring for people. She just found a different way to do it. The next day, Maya walked into Romano's and gave her 2 weeks' notice. Vincent was surprised but gracious, wishing her well. Donna threw her a small farewell party in the kitchen, complete with a cake Marco had baked specially for the occasion. When her final shift ended, Maya stood outside the restaurant one last time, looking at the spot where she'd first seen Sarah. The alley was empty now, just shadows and brick. But Maya could still see the girl huddled there, could still feel the pull that had made her step outside into the rain. That moment had changed everything. One choice, made in the space between heartbeats, had set in motion a cascade of events that transformed not just Sarah's life, but Maya's too. She climbed into her car and drove to Second Foundations for her first official day as a program coordinator. Rebecca met her in the lobby, handing her an ID badge and a folder full of orientation materials. "Welcome to the team," Rebecca said. Maya pinned the badge to her shirt and smiled. "It feels right to be here." They spent the morning touring the facilities, meeting staff, reviewing protocols. Maya was introduced as someone who understood the mission on a personal level, someone who had walked the walk before joining the team. The other coordinators welcomed her warmly, recognizing immediately that she brought something unique to the table. In the afternoon, Maya met with her first assigned student, a 14-year-old boy named Marcus, not to be confused with the mentor who had been living on the streets for 6 months before being referred to the program. He was guarded, suspicious, angry at the world. Maya saw herself in him, saw Sarah, saw every kid who had been failed by the systems meant to protect them. She sat across from Marcus in one of the counseling rooms and said simply, "I know this is scary. I know you don't trust me yet, but I'm not here to fix you or change you. I'm just here to walk beside you while you figure out who you want to be." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, "You really mean that?" "I do," Maya replied, "because someone did that for me once, and it made all the difference." They talked for an hour, and by the end, some of the walls Marcus had built around himself had started to crack. It wasn't a breakthrough, not yet, but it was a beginning. And beginnings, Maya had learned, were powerful things. Over the following year, Maya threw herself into the work. She mentored students, coordinated programs, collaborated with Rebecca on expansion plans. Second Foundations opened a second campus, then a third. The model was proving itself, and other organizations were starting to take notice. Sarah flourished. She graduated from the program with honors and received a full scholarship to study architecture at the State University. Maya and Rebecca attended her graduation ceremony, sitting in the audience as Sarah walked across the stage to receive her diploma. When her name was called, both women stood and applauded, tears streaming down their faces. After the ceremony, Sarah found them in the crowd. She was wearing her cap and gown, her face glowing with pride and joy. "I did it," she said, laughing through tears. "I actually did it. We never doubted you for a second, Rebecca said, pulling her into a hug. Maya hugged her next, holding on tight. I'm so incredibly proud of you. Sarah pulled back, looking between them. You know I wouldn't be here without you too, right? You changed my life. No, Maya said gently. You changed your own life. We just gave you the space to do it. Sarah shook her head. You gave me more than space. You gave me hope. And that's everything. They took photos together, laughing and crying and celebrating. Sarah's classmates surrounded them. Other graduates who had walked similar paths, who had been given second chances and made the most of them. It was a beautiful chaos, and Maya soaked in every moment. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the campus, Rebecca pulled Maya aside. I have something to tell you, she said. Maya raised an eyebrow. What? The board approved funding for 10 more campuses, Rebecca said, her eyes bright. We're going national. Maya's jaw dropped. Are you serious? Completely. We've proven the model works. Now it's time to scale it. And I want you to help lead the expansion. Maya felt dizzy with the magnitude of what Rebecca was saying. 10 more campuses meant hundreds more kids helped. It meant a movement, a real systemic change. It was everything they dreamed of and more. I'm in, Maya said without hesitation. Whatever you need, I'm in. Rebecca smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. They stood together, watching the graduates disperse, families taking photos, friends embracing. It was a scene of triumph, of potential realized. And it had all started with one rainy night, one hungry girl, one decision to step outside and offer help. Maya thought back to that moment often. She thought about how close she'd come to walking away, to convincing herself it wasn't her responsibility. She thought about all the lives that would have been different if she had. But she hadn't walked away. She'd stopped. She'd seen. She'd acted. And everything that followed had grown from that single seed of compassion. 2 years later, Second Foundations operated 20 campuses across 12 states. The program had helped over 1,000 young people transition from homelessness or foster care into stable, productive lives. 90% of graduates went on to college or vocational training. 85% maintained stable housing a year after leaving the program. The numbers were impressive, but Maya knew the real impact couldn't be measured in statistics. It was in the smile of a kid who finally felt safe. It was in the confidence of a teenager who discovered their passion. It was in the hope that replaced despair, the possibilities that replaced dead ends. Maya had been promoted to Director of Program Development, overseeing the creation of new campuses and the training of staff. She traveled constantly, visiting sites, meeting students, ensuring the model stayed true to its core values. It was exhausting work, but it filled her with purpose in a way nothing else ever had. Sarah finished her second year of college with a near-perfect grade point average. She declared a major in sustainable architecture with a focus on affordable housing design. She spent her summers interning at Rebecca's company, working on projects that aligned with her values. The girl who had once been invisible was now building structures that would shelter others. One evening, Maya received a call from Sarah. They talked regularly now, their relationship having evolved from mentor and student to genuine friendship. I have news, Sarah said, her voice bubbling with excitement. Good news, I hope. The best. I got accepted into a study abroad program in Copenhagen. They have one of the most innovative approaches to social housing in the world. Sarah, that's incredible, Maya exclaimed. When do you leave? Next semester. I'll be gone for 6 months. Maya felt a pang of bittersweetness. She was thrilled for Sarah, but she'd miss having her nearby. You have to go. This is an amazing opportunity. I know, Sarah said, but I wanted to ask you something first. Would you and Rebecca come to dinner before I leave? I want to thank you properly. For everything. You don't have to thank us, Maya said automatically. I know I don't have to, Sarah replied. But I want to. Please? Maya smiled. Of course we'll come. They met at a small restaurant Sarah had chosen, a cozy Italian place with checkered tablecloths and candles on every table. It reminded Maya of Romano's, though she hadn't set foot in that restaurant since leaving. Sarah was already seated when they arrived, wearing a dress and looking more grown-up than Maya could quite process. Over dinner, They talked about everything. Sarah's classes, her internship, her plans for Copenhagen. Rebecca shared updates about the foundation, including a partnership with a national nonprofit that would provide additional funding and resources. Maya talked about the new campus opening in Texas, how the students there were already exceeding expectations. As dessert arrived, Sarah set down her fork and looked at both of them seriously. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Both of you changed my life in ways I'm still discovering. But I want you to know that you did more than just help me. You showed me what it looks like to live with purpose, to see suffering and respond with action instead of apathy." Maya felt her throat tighten. Sarah continued, "I've decided that after I finish my degree, I want to design housing specifically for programs like Second Foundations. Affordable, beautiful spaces that help people heal and grow. I want to spend my career building homes for people who need them most." Rebecca reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. "That's a beautiful goal, and I have no doubt you'll achieve it." Maya nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Sarah smiled at both of them. "You gave me a second chance," she said. "Now I want to spend my life giving that to others." They raised their glasses in a toast. "To second chances," Rebecca said. "To purpose," Maya added. "To hope," Sarah finished. The glasses clinked together, the sound clear and bright in the warm restaurant. Around them, other diners laughed and talked, unaware of the significance of the moment happening at the corner table. But Maya felt it deeply. This wasn't an ending. It was a continuation, a ripple moving outward, touching more lives than they could count. When they left the restaurant, the night air was cool and clear. Stars dotted the sky above them, countless points of light in the darkness. Sarah hugged them both goodbye, promising to call from Copenhagen to share photos and stories. Maya and Rebecca walked to their cars together, moving slowly, reluctant to let the evening end. "We did good work," Rebecca said quietly. "We're still doing it," Maya replied. Rebecca smiled. Yes, we are." They parted ways, each driving home through quiet streets. Maya arrived at her apartment, which she'd upgraded since taking the job at Second Foundations, and sat on her balcony looking out at the city. Lights twinkled in windows, each one representing a life, a story, a possibility. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, my name is Emma. Dr. Chun gave me your number. I just arrived at Second Foundations, and I'm scared. Can we talk?" Maya's heart squeezed. She typed back immediately. "Of course. I'm here. Tell me what you need." As she waited for the response, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a waitress struggling to make ends meet to a director helping shape the lives of vulnerable youth. From one act of kindness to a cascade of change. She thought about Sarah, about Marcus, about Emma, and all the others she'd worked with over the years. Each one a unique story, a unique struggle, a unique triumph. Each one proof that people could heal, could grow, could become more than their circumstances. Her phone buzzed again. Emma's response came through. "Thank you. I just needed to know someone cares." Maya smiled through tears and typed back. "Someone always cares. You're not alone anymore." She set the phone down and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Sarah was preparing for her adventure. Somewhere, Rebecca was planning the next phase of expansion. Somewhere, a girl named Emma was taking her first steps toward healing. And here, in this moment, Maya understood something profound. The work of changing lives wasn't about grand gestures or heroic acts. It was about showing up. It was about seeing people when they felt invisible. It was about offering help without expectation of return. It was about remembering that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, and choosing kindness anyway. Years would pass. More campuses would open. More students would graduate. Some would stumble. Some would soar. All would carry forward the knowledge that they mattered, that they were seen, that they deserved a chance to become who they were meant to be. And it had all started on a rainy November evening, with a hungry girl pressed against a restaurant window and a waitress who chose to stop and help. That choice, made in a heartbeat, had become a legacy. That legacy would outlive them all. Maya stood and walked back inside her apartment. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new students, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, She allowed herself to rest in the knowledge that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. She had found her purpose in the most unexpected place. And in doing so, she had helped countless others find theirs. The city hummed outside her window, alive with possibility. And Maya, once a waitress trying to survive, now a woman helping others thrive, closed her eyes and smiled. The work would continue. The ripples would spread. The change would multiply. And it had all begun with one simple act. One moment of seeing another human being and choosing to respond with love. That was the real miracle. Not the programs, or the campuses, or the success stories. The miracle was the choice itself. The decision to stop, to see, to help. Everything else had simply grown from that. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.